There is a paint that can drop the surface temperature of your roof by up to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. One coat, no electricity, no compressor, no monthly bill. The Department of Energy confirmed it. Purdue University engineered the physics behind it. Oak Ridge National Laboratory measured the results on real buildings, in real climates, and the exposed cost per square foot is less than what you'd pay for a decent interior latex at your local hardware store. $2. That's the price of a technology that could slash your cooling costs by as much as 40% in peak summer months. A technology that multiple roofing manufacturers have had access to for years, but never once featured in a single national advertising campaign. You've spent thousands on HVAC upgrades, duct sealing, attic insulation, smart thermostats. You've been told the only way to fight heat is to condition the air after it invades your home. But what if the cheapest, most effective thermal defense was always meant to go on the outside, and the industries that profit from your discomfort had zero financial incentive to tell you it existed? If this is the kind of information that never shows up in your feed but should, hit subscribe right now and share this video with someone who's dreading their next electric bill. What we're about to walk through is an opinion. It's published physics, exposed economics, and an exposed regulatory landscape that explains exactly why the most effective cooling surface ever developed is missing from most American rooftops. Every summer, the sun deposits roughly 1,000 watts of thermal energy onto every square meter of your roof. That's the equivalent of running a small space heater face down on every 3-foot section of your home's outer shell. 10 to 14 hours a day, from May through September, your attic absorbs it. Your ceiling radiates it downward. Your air conditioner fights it. And your utility company bills you for the war. In a typical Sunbelt household, cooling accounts for 27% of total annual electricity consumption. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration's 2022 Residential Energy Consumption Survey, in Phoenix, that number climbs past 40%. In Houston, it sits near. You are not paying for comfort. You are paying for damage control against a problem that starts on the exterior surface of your own home. A surface you, probably, never think about because no one in the cooling industry has ever encouraged you to. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. In October 2020, a materials science team at Purdue University, led by Professor Shulin Ruin, published a study in the journal Cell Reports Physical Science, describing an ultra-white paint formulation using barium sulfate nano that achieved a solar reflectance of 90.1%. Standard white roof coatings on the market at that time reflected somewhere between 70 and 85% of incoming solar radiation. The Purdue formulation didn't just reflect more light. It did something no conventional coating had ever accomplished at commercial scale. It achieved subambient cooling in direct sunlight. That phrase deserves a pause. Subambient cooling means the painted surface dropped below the temperature of the surrounding air. Even while the sun was directly hitting it, during field testing, surfaces coated with the Purdue formulation measured up to 19 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than ambient air temperature at night and approximately 8 degrees below ambient during peak noon sun. The mechanism behind this isn't magic. It's selective thermal emission through what atmospheric physicists call the infrared transparency window, a wavelength band between 8 and 13 micrometers, where Earth's atmosphere is essentially transparent. Heat radiated in that band doesn't get trapped by greenhouse gases. It passes straight through the atmosphere and dissipates into the cold vacuum of space, which sits at roughly 3 Kelvin or minus 454 degrees Fahrenheit. The paint is engineered to emit thermal radiation precisely in that band. It's not just a mirror, it's a pump. It moves heat off your roof and into the cosmos at the speed of light, 24 hours a day, with no electricity, no moving parts, and no maintenance. The Department of Energy's Oak Ridge National Laboratory confirmed the underlying physics independently. Their building envelope research program has tested reflective and radiative roof coatings on occupied structures across multiple climate zones since the early 2000s. Their published data consistently shows that high reflectance roof surfaces reduce peak cooling demand by anywhere from 10 to 40% depending on insulation levels, climate severity, and roof geometry. So the science is settled. The laboratory results are published. The federal government's own research facility has verified the performance across real buildings in real weather. And the cost of this technology, when you strip away the Purdue research framing and look at what's actually available to consumers right now, is almost insulting in its simplicity. Barium sulfate is not a rare compound. It's a mineral pigment used in medical imaging, industrial plastics, and paper brightening. It costs less per ton than titanium dioxide, the standard white pigment in virtually every exterior paint on the shelf at home. Teapots, several commercial products have already entered the market, leveraging high-concentration barium sulfate and calcium carbonate particle engineering to approach the reflective and emissive performance Purdue demonstrated. Companies like COOLS, COOLS Systems, and most notably, Purdue's own licensed commercial partner, have brought formulations to retail and industrial channels at price points ranging from roughly $1.50 to $3 per square foot of coverage. For a 1,500 square foot roof, that's between $2,250 and $4,500 installed. Compare that to the cost of a new central air conditioning system, which the national average for replacement sits at approximately $5,800 according to HomeAdvisor's 2023 pricing data, not including the annual electricity to run it, which the EIA pegs at roughly $550 per year for an average Southern household. The paint pays for itself. The air conditioner never does, and yet, walk into any major home improvement retailer in America and ask for radiative cooling paint. Ask the associate in the paint department about subambient roof coatings. Ask them about barium sulfate emissivity. You will get a blank stare. Not because the information is classified, not because the product doesn't exist, but because the product sits in no featured end cap, appears in no seasonal promotion, occupies no shelf space, next to the Behr and the Sherwin-Williams and the Rust-Oleum products that dominate the coatings aisle. The major paint manufacturers, the ones with the distribution networks, the contractor relationships, the co-op advertising budgets with big box retailers have not released their own competing radiative cooling lines. They sell heat-reflective roof coatings. Yes, they sell Energy Star-rated cool roof products that meet the minimum 65% reflectance threshold. But none of them have brought a 98% reflectance subambient radiative cooling product to their mainstream consumer lineup. Why? That question is worth sitting with. These are companies with massive R&D budgets, full access to the same published material science, and decades of experience formulating exterior coatings. They didn't miss the Purdue study. It made international news. They chose not to compete in that space, at least not yet, and not visibly. The business logic isn't complicated when you trace the incentive structure. A coating that reduces cooling load by 30 to 40% is a threat to adjacent product categories that the same parent corporations sometimes own or supply into. Honeywell Johnson controls Carrier Global. These are names that appear both in building materials supply chains and in HVAC manufacturing. The thermostat on your wall and the compressor on your concrete pad exists in a commercial ecosystem that depends on your home being thermally inefficient, enough to require mechanical cooling. A $2 per square foot paint that slashes that dependency doesn't create a recurring revenue stream. It doesn't require annual service contracts. It doesn't break down after 15 years and need a $6,000 replacement. It just sits on your roof, silently radiating heat into space, costing nothing to operate. From a shareholder's perspective, that product is a problem. No one had to conspire in a boardroom to suppress it. The spreadsheet did the work. When a product cannibalizes more profitable categories and generates no follow-on revenue, it doesn't get suppressed. It simply never gets promoted. It never gets shelf space. It never gets the contractor rebate program. It never gets the Super Bowl ad. It gets published in a physics journal, covered in a 40 ITR news cycle, and then silence. And then there's the regulatory architecture. 22 states currently have no statewide energy code provisions that specifically incentivize or credit radiative cooling roof coatings beyond the baseline Energy Star cool roof standards. Several of those states contain municipalities with HOA enforceable aesthetic codes that restrict exterior roof colors to a narrow palette of earth tones, grays, and approved shingle appearances. Ultra-white, the color necessary for maximum radiative performance, fails those codes by default. Not because anyone examined the physics and rejected it, because the codes were written to preserve neighborhood visual conformity, and no one updated them when the science changed. The result is a quiet exclusion, not a ban technically, but a functional barrier that operates with the same force. You can't install what your HOA won't approve. You can't claim a tax credit that your state hasn't written into its energy code. And you can't buy what the major manufacturers have decided not to sell you. The $2 solution exists. The physics work. The proof is federal. And the path between that proof and your rooftop is blocked not by science, not by failure, but by money, aesthetics, and institutional inertia dressed up as building standards.